I work security at Incheon International Airport in Seoul. Last month, an American woman arrived at the checkpoint and placed her laptop inside her carry-on bag before sending it through the scanner. I stopped her and asked her to remove the laptop. She crossed her arms and said, "I never have to do this at home anymore." TSA upgraded to new scanners. I explained that we use standard X-ray machines here, not CT scanners. She pulled out her phone, showed me a TSA article about advanced screening technology, and declared, "See? This proves airports worldwide adopted the new standard in 2023. You're behind the times." I pointed to our equipment, explained it was functioning correctly, and that different countries use different technology. She said, "That makes zero sense. Security protocols are federally mandated globally." When I finally convinced her to remove the laptop, she muttered something about international aviation law requiring standardization. Her bag had 3 more laptops inside. My cousin manages a duty-free shop at Singapore Changi Airport. An American couple approached the counter carrying 2 unopened bottles of bourbon they'd purchased at Dallas-Fort Worth before their flight. They wanted to take them on their connecting flight to Bali. My cousin explained that Singapore doesn't allow liquids over 100 milliliters from non-sterile areas, even if purchased at another airport. The husband interrupted, "We bought these after security in America. That's the sterile area, so it counts." My cousin clarified that once they landed in Singapore, they re-entered a public area, making the bottles subject to local restrictions. The wife said, "But we never left the airport. We walked straight from one gate to another through the terminal." She genuinely believed that airport terminals existed in some kind of international liquid exemption zone. My cousin showed them the visible stamp on their original security screening documents showing they'd cleared screening in Dallas, not Singapore. The husband said, "This is bureaucratic nonsense. Once you clear security anywhere, you're cleared everywhere." They missed their connection arguing about it. I drove shuttles at Auckland Airport for 2 years. An American passenger asked why he had to declare the hiking boots in his luggage. He'd worn them on trails throughout Patagonia and hadn't cleaned them. I explained New Zealand has strict biosecurity laws because we're an island nation trying to protect native species from foreign pathogens and seed. He laughed and said, "It's just dirt. You have dirt here too." I told him soil can contain organisms or seeds that don't exist in New Zealand and could devastate local ecosystems. He responded, "That's scientifically impossible. Dirt is dirt. The molecular composition is identical worldwide. It's broken down rock and organic matter." He then claimed he'd studied geology in college, and that my concerns were botanical fearmongering invented by customs agents to justify their jobs. The biosecurity officer who inspected his boots found 3 types of seeds, including one from an invasive species. The passenger had to pay for professional cleaning and still insisted the entire system was invented to create government jobs. I handle passport control at Amsterdam Schiphol Airport. An American man arrived at my desk and handed me his passport without saying anything. I greeted him in English and asked about his visit. He sighed and said, "Just stamp it. I've been flying for 16 hours. I continued with standard questions about his length of stay and accommodation. He groaned and said, "Why do European customs agents always chat? American customs takes 30 seconds. You scan, you stamp, you move on." I explained that EU regulations require us to verify certain information. He said, "That's inefficient. America processes way more passengers because we don't waste time on small talk." I noted that the average processing time at Schiphol is 90 seconds per passenger. He said, "Exactly. That's triple what we take. You should adopt the American speed-focused model instead of pretending you care about people's vacation plans." I stamped his passport and he rushed off. The passenger behind him, also American, apologized and said her friend had been awake for 24 hours and forgot which continent he was on. My brother works the ticket counter at Kansai International Airport in Osaka. An American woman checked in for a domestic flight to Sapporo and seemed confused when told to proceed to security without removing her shoes. She asked, "When do I take my shoes off?" My brother said we don't require shoe removal for domestic flights in Japan. She said, "That can't be right. Shoes have been mandatory worldwide since 2002 after that British guy tried to blow up a plane." My brother explained that the shoe bomber incident led to American policy, not global policy. She said, "No, it's an international regulation. I read about it in an airline magazine. Every country signed the treaty." She insisted that Japan must be violating international aviation agreements and that she'd feel uncomfortable flying without the shoe check. My brother offered to let her remove her shoes voluntarily if it made her feel safer. She said, "This isn't about feelings. This is about security protocols that exist for a reason. What if someone on this flight has explosives in their shoes?" She demanded to speak to a supervisor and spent 15 minutes trying to convince him that Japan should implement mandatory shoe removal. She also mentioned she'd write to the International Civil Aviation Organization about this dangerous oversight. I work at the information desk at Dubai International Airport. An American family approached asking why they needed to queue separately at customs. The father said their flight from JFK allowed families to use one customs form. I explained that Dubai requires individual declarations from each adult passenger. He said, "That's redundant. We're a family unit traveling together with the same stuff. America understands that families share resources." I clarified that UAE law treats each person as an individual importer. His wife added, "This must be a new policy. When we went to Cancun last year, they had family-friendly customs." I pointed out that Mexico and the UAE are different countries with different rules. The father said, "But we're all part of the global travel network. There should be consistency. It's like how McDonald's tastes the same everywhere. Airports should work the same everywhere." He suggested that the UAE should modernize its customs approach to match Western efficiency standards. I handed them each a separate form. The teenage daughter whispered to me, "I tried to tell him this morning," and rolled her eyes. I'm a security supervisor at Sao Paulo, Guarulhos International Airport. An American man placed a full water bottle on the conveyor belt. My colleague stopped him and asked him to dispose of it. He said, "I bought this after security at Miami International. It's a sealed bottle." My colleague explained that he's now going through Brazilian security, where the liquid rules apply regardless of where he purchased it. He said, "That makes no logical sense. Security is security. If Miami approved it, Sao Paulo should accept Miami's judgment." My colleague noted that he'd left the sterile area when he landed and collected baggage. He responded, "I know how airports work. I fly constantly for business. Once you're in the secure zone, you stay secure until you exit the airport completely." I intervened and explained that international arrivals re-enter public areas. He said, "Then why don't they make you go through security again between the plane and baggage claim? See? That proves I never left the secure area." I showed him the signs clearly marking the baggage claim as a non-secure area. He said, "Signs can be wrong," poured out half the bottle, and asked if that brought it under the limit. It did not. I work at a currency exchange inside Zurich Airport. An American woman approached and asked why we don't accept her personal check. I explained we only accept cash, cards, or traveler's check. She said, "I use checks everywhere at home. They're legal tender." I clarified that Swiss vendors rarely accept foreign checks because of fraud risk and processing delays. She said, "But it's money. A check is the same as cash. It's just paper representing funds in my account. I explained the difference between cash and a payment promise. She said, "This is exactly why Europe struggles economically. America embraced checks in the 1950s and became a financial superpower. You're rejecting modern banking." She then suggested we were discriminating against American banking systems. I offered to process her credit card instead. She said, "I don't want to pay foreign transaction fees. Just deposit my check and give me Swiss francs when it clears." I explained that exchange counters don't operate like banks. She asked to speak to a manager and spent 10 minutes explaining how checks work, as if we'd never encountered one before. She eventually used her credit card and complained the entire time about European backwardness. My aunt runs a cafe in the international terminal at Istanbul airport. An American man ordered a coffee and handed her a 50 lira note. She gave him change in Turkish lira. He stared at the coins and said, "I need dollars. I'm American." My aunt explained the cafe operates in Turkish currency. He said, "But this is an international airport. International means American money is accepted." She noted that Turkey isn't part of the United States. He said, "I understand that, but airports exist in a global space outside normal country rules. That's why you can buy stuff without paying country taxes." My aunt clarified that airport shops still operate under Turkish law and Turkish currency. He said, "Then why do they call it international? That's false advertising." He insisted that accepting only lira was financially discriminatory against travelers, and that major airports should accept dollars, euros, and pounds as standard. My aunt patiently explained that the currency exchange was 3 gates away. He said, "I shouldn't have to exchange money inside my own airport, as if the building belonged to him personally." He eventually stomped off to the exchange counter, returned, and bought his coffee without apologizing. I manage a bookstore at Toronto Pearson International Airport. An American woman brought a magazine to the counter and seemed surprised when the total came to $8.99. She said, "That's not right. The tag says $7.99. I explained that the price was in Canadian dollars plus tax. She said, "Why isn't tax included in the listed price? That's deceptive." I mentioned that Canadian retailers typically add tax at checkout. She said, "America does that too, but this is an airport. You're supposed to include tax so travelers know the real price." I clarified that airports follow the same local tax laws as any other business. She said, "That defeats the whole purpose of duty-free shopping." I explained we're not a duty-free shop. She looked confused and said, "Then what's the point of buying things at airports?" I explained that airport retail exists for convenience. She said, "But everyone knows airport stores are duty-free. That's why people shop here." I showed her the duty-free stores past customs. She said, "This is deliberately confusing. You should put up signs explaining that some stores charge tax and some don't." There were signs. I work concessions at Melbourne Airport. An American couple ordered fish and chips and asked for ranch dressing. I explained we don't carry ranch but offered aioli or tartar sauce. The husband said, "How do you not have ranch? It's the most popular dressing in the world." I noted it's an American condiment not commonly stocked in Australia. He said, "We're at an international airport. You should have international condiments." His wife added, "We saw ranch at the Sydney airport last week." I explained that some vendors stock it, but our fish and chip shop focuses on traditional accompaniment. He said, "Fish and chips is American food. We invented it during the colonial period." I gently corrected that fish and chips originated in the United Kingdom. He said, "Same thing. England is basically the original America." He then theorized that ranch dressing must have originated in Britain as well and that Australia should stock it as part of Commonwealth heritage. I offered malt vinegar as a traditional option. He said, "Vinegar isn't a sauce," tried it anyway, and admitted it was surprisingly acceptable. He still asked for a comment card to suggest we add ranch. I work the rental car desk at Reykjavik Keflavik Airport. An American man asked for directions to drive from Iceland to France. I clarified that Iceland is an island in the North Atlantic. He said, "I know it's an island. I mean the bridge or tunnel." I explained no bridge or tunnel connects Iceland to continental Europe. He pulled out his phone, showed me a map, and said, "Look, Greenland is right here. You can clearly see the land connections between countries." I pointed out that the map showed ocean between landmasses. He said, "Yeah, but maps aren't to scale. What looks like water is probably just narrow straits. The channel connects England to France underwater. Iceland must have something similar." I assured him no such tunnel exists. He said, "That's a massive infrastructure failure. Iceland should build one to boost tourism." He then asked how people transport goods between Iceland and Europe. I mentioned cargo ships and planes. He said, "That's wildly inefficient. It's the 21st century." He refused to believe Iceland was truly isolated until I showed him Atlantic Ocean depth charts. He eventually rented a car for local use only, but he kept muttering about missed economic opportunities. I checked boarding passes at the gate for domestic flights at Melbourne Airport. An American woman handed me her passport along with her boarding pass. I thanked her but explained I only needed the boarding pass for a domestic flight. She said, "You have to check ID. That's federal law." I explained Australian domestic flights don't require ID unless you're under 18. She said, "That's insane. Anyone could use someone else's ticket." I noted that tickets are electronic and linked to passenger names. She said, "What if someone steals my phone and uses my boarding pass?" I pointed out that phone thieves would still need to know her name and match her luggage tags. She said, "This would never fly in America. We have strict identification laws for security reasons." I explained that Australia assesses security differently. She said, "You're basically asking for trouble. I could claim to be anyone right now." I replied that she could, but that would constitute fraud. She said, "See? You admit the system has a loophole." She insisted on showing me her passport anyway and made me physically look at it before boarding. She told other passengers in line that Australian security was concerningly lax. My sister manages ground crew operations at Munich Airport. An American man complained his flight to Berlin took 90 minutes despite Germany being the size of Montana. He said, "The whole country should take an hour to cross by plane max." My sister explained that flight times include taxiing, takeoff, cruising, and landing. He said, "Even still, Munich to Berlin is like Los Angeles to San Francisco, a 1-hour flight." My sister noted that Munich to Berlin is actually about 600 kilometers. He said, "That's 400 miles. Any modern jet covers that in 40 minutes at cruising speed." She explained jets don't cruise at maximum speed for short flights because they spend more time ascending and descending than at altitude. He said, "That's a design flaw. Germany should invest in high-speed rail if planes can't handle short distances efficiently." She mentioned Germany has excellent high-speed rail. He said, "Then why are you even offering flights?" She explained people choose flights for speed despite the cost. He said, "But you just admitted the train might be faster." He'd somehow missed that his 90-minute flight was still quicker than a 5-hour train ride. He also complained that the flight distance should be listed in miles on German tickets to avoid confusion for international passengers. I'm a customs officer at Cape Town International Airport. An American man declared 12 bottles of wine from Stellenbosch. I explained South Africa allows 2 bottles per person duty-free for departing visitors. He said, "I bought them legally in your country. You can't charge me to take out what I already paid for." I clarified the duty applies when importing them into the United States, not exporting from South Africa. He said, "That's double taxation. I already paid sales tax here." I explained customs duties are separate from sales taxes. He said, "America has a free trade agreement with South Africa. I looked it up before I came." I informed him the US and South Africa have trade relations but no comprehensive free trade agreement eliminating all duties. He said, "Then what's the point of globalization?" I thought the whole idea was to make international shopping easy. I gave him the option to ship the excess bottles or abandon them. He said, "This is protectionism against the global wine market. American customs should recognize South African wine as equivalent to California wine under trade parity laws." I asked if he wanted to speak to a supervisor. He declined and abandoned 4 bottles, grumbling about how NAFTA was supposed to fix this. I do baggage screening at London Heathrow. An American woman's bag triggered an alert for a large metal object. I opened it and found a full-sized curling iron. She said, "That's allowed. Heat tools are never restricted." I explained that while curling irons are permitted, hers exceeded the size limit for carry-on and should be checked. She said, "I've carried this exact curling iron on 50 flights. No one's ever stopped me." I noted that enforcement varies by airport. She said, "If 50 airports approved it, that establishes precedent. You can't suddenly decide it's too big." I explained each airport interprets guidelines independently. She said, "That's anarchic. There should be one global rulebook." I offered to have it checked as luggage for free. She said, "And risk it breaking?" "Absolutely not." She ultimately removed several other items to make space and repacked while muttering about inconsistent international regulations. The passenger behind her leaned over and whispered, "Just so you know, not all of us are like this." After 15 years working airports worldwide, I've learned that debate rarely beats confidence. Americans arrive convinced their airport is the airport and everywhere else is improvising. They don't argue because they're rude, they argue because they genuinely believe every rule in aviation was written by TSA and then exported worldwide. But here's the thing. When you insist the whole world should work like Dallas-Fort Worth, you miss the entire point of traveling.